Do you or your kids use technology? Well, if you are listening to this, then the answer is yes. Um, Many of our kids are on social media or use technology in some way, especially in their schools. And many of our kids have their own devices, even a smartphone of their own. And I want to talk today a little bit about some of those dangers. So thank you for joining me for the Cultivating Calmness podcast. My name is Kaela Vance, and this week in our community, or this past week or two in our community, we had a child die from a social media present challenge. You may have heard of it, called the Choking Challenge. And I found out via social media that this happened to one of the children in our area, had tried the challenge, and from all accounts was a very kind and generous and thoughtful kid, and came across this challenge with peers. And unfortunately, he ended up losing his life to this challenge, not on purpose. And that seems to be what happens with this challenge, is that children of all ages will try it. Essentially, my understanding is to get, if they know about it, to get some kind of high off of it. You kind of pass out, but some kids don't really know maybe what it is. It's just cool, and other kids are doing it. And then they don't wake up because they have, choked themselves to death. Most of the time, it seems on accident. So that got me to thinking about social media. And I know I've talked on my podcast before about social media and technology and some of the dangers therein, but I think it's been a while since we've talked about it. So wanted to have this conversation again, especially since in our community, it has been brought up in this very real and very sad event. And I just want to bring awareness and attention to some of those dangers. Now, I am not a social media expert. I do enjoy utilizing social media, and sometimes can use it too much, along with lots of other people out there, especially our kids. If you are my age or older, you were raised in an environment where we did not have phones at our fingertips, and we didn't have everything at our fingertips. I didn't have that until I was in college. I had a cell phone in high school, but it was a flip phone, and it was the texting and, tap the number so many times to get the different letters and all of that. So if you were born, in the late 90s, you were raised on a lot of, you were raised on technology, and that's just been your life, especially, our kids, people my age, and older, a little older. We have kids that have been completely raised with technology, with, iPads, iPhones, television, everything, at their fingertips in a split second. And there can be pros and cons to that, right? We're sitting around, and I wonder, what the answer is to this. Well, we have a phone that has Google or has other search engines on it where we can find all the information that we need, right? Well, yeah, that's great. Except it leads to, some lack of ability in being able to think for yourself and being able to come up with information and be able to think through things. It also leads to our kids not being able to form healthy relationships with each other, healthy romantic relationships with people, to have a sense of self and a sense of like what the world is around them, their sense of what is happening in the world around them is not accurate. And I see this in the teens that I work with. I see this in the young adults that I work with. And we have to have these conversations about like what a healthy relationship is, what is safe, what is normal, what is normal versus what is common. Just because everybody uses social media and everybody does it this way, does that mean it's normal? It may be the new normal, but does that mean it's good? Does that mean we should be using it in this way? We are exposed to so much more information now than we ever used to be. And, that is leading to that increase in depression and anxiety in adults and especially in our kids. But, what I wanted to focus on specifically is safety. We, as parents maybe, and as teachers, put our trust in these technology giants that give our kids these devices and set up these apps for our kids and adults to use. But the technology providers, the technology giants are not out for our kids' safety. Okay. They may set age restrictions and they may have limitations on who can create an account, but they're not very stringent. If they say you have to be 16, they don't require you to upload your driver's license. They don't require to have a conversation with a parent to be able to get the app, correct? All a kid has to do is say, yeah, I'm 16. Here's my date of birth. I will just adjust it to fit the age requirement, if that even exists, right? So there are many ways around the restrictions that are in place for kids to be able to use certain apps. And then it's not only about our kids using them, but it's about who else out there is using these apps. If I let my kids use an app, I am trusting not only that they will use it appropriately, but that the world out there will be using it appropriately in a way that my kids will be accessing that information. And unfortunately, we cannot trust the people out there. And we have seen that time and time again in the apps that are out there. So I wanted to touch on a few, kind of give you some insights. If you're unaware, you may be very well aware of these things. And if you are, that is great. I encourage you to share this with other parents. If you weren't aware and you now are aware, something that you can do is just to be able to monitor, maybe set some of your own personal restrictions, maybe get certain apps out there to be able to monitor what it is your kids are doing on their devices. Because unfortunately, we cannot trust other people to monitor themselves or to do the right thing. That's why they're called predators, because they prey on our children for their benefit. So we all know the popular apps out there: Snapchat, Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, Roblox. I'm going to talk about some of those today. And a lot of them have the ability to have secrecy, and your kids have the ability to hide you from them. So something to think about before we even jump into it is, do you have access to all of your kids, like social media? Do you have access to their phones? Do you have their password? Some people feel a little differently about this, like they need their privacy. Yes, they need their privacy, but you have to think about whether privacy for them is a privilege or a right when it comes to technology. And as a parent, that is your decision and how you want to handle that. But when it comes to technology, we can't always trust other people, and we can't always trust what they're exposed to. And I have had clients who have themselves gotten into sticky situations, maybe on purpose, like they engaged in a conversation that then went in a different direction, maybe completely by accident. I have had clients who've had kids have this happen. And I've had clients who've had these conversations with their kids and these incidents still happened. I have seen these incidents happen to community members, to, just people out in the world. We hear the stories all the time. So, you can trust your kid to do the right thing. We cannot trust the people out there to do the right thing with our kids. So just be aware of that and keep that in mind when it comes to how much trust you put in, our phones and in technology. Something you can do is to know their password and to have rules, to have a technology contract. So that would be, we're going to talk about how much time you're allowed to spend on it, what I as a parent am allowed to access and when, and how we're going to go about doing that, what the consequences are if I find something on your phone that shouldn't be there, how they can trust you, and the conversations that they can have with you about what may or may not be happening to them or even their peers on social media. For example, If somebody messages them and sends them a, inappropriate, maybe a sexual message, can they come to you? Do they feel that they can show that to you without you say, oh, that's it. You can't have this anymore. We're taking away your phone and these apps and etc. Because if that's going to be a reaction, they're not going to want to show you or let you know that that's going on. So it's a delicate balance in trying to find, how we manage their ability to communicate with their friends with the outside world that wants to get in and do the wrong thing. So having that conversation before you even start, before they download the apps, before they're engaged in that life, let's have a talk about it. Let's review it. Let's make sure we're on the same page, because you want to build trust with them. You want them to trust you and you to trust them. And bad things are going to happen. They will make mistakes. I guarantee it. They're going to mess up. They're going to do the wrong thing. Are you going to yell at them about it? Are you going to punish them? Are you going to have a reasonable punishment? And can you guys talk about it? So those are some big things for you to consider. If your kids are getting involved and have technology, which they will, and social media. Okay, so if you were unaware, you're thinking about Snapchat. Snapchat is the way a lot of teens, young adults are communicating. They don't. A lot of them aren't texting anymore. They do, with the traditional messaging apps, but not all of them are sending messages via text. It's via Snapchat, via Instagram, TikTok, things like that. And then there are other additional messaging apps that they may message in, but it's not always in a traditional texting app. So that's something for you to be aware of, that they may be communicating that way. So if you forbid Snapchat, for example, and that's the only way they communicate, you have to think about what other ways you can help them to communicate, or what are the compromises you're willing to make. Thinking about that and what that looks like in your household and with your family, and how you can protect them, but also give them some space. Now, every family is different. Maybe some trust has been eroded and we can't trust it at all. Maybe you can have some trust with some limitations. Maybe you download an app that can view everything that's going on. Those may be some alternatives for you and your family. But with Snapchat, right, we know that the messages disappear after a certain amount of time. There's a lot of privacy things. There's ways to hide messages, but they can make their location live, meaning anybody can see it versus just their friends seeing their location. So that's a good way for predators to get to your children. And believe me, they will. And they will send those like cold calls. They will send those messages of just a private part, right? They will text and message your kids through any of these apps that we're talking about to try to get their information, to try to make connection with them, to groom them, to convince them that, they should meet, that they should send their own pictures. And this is very dangerous. Thinking about the Whisper app is an app that allows you to share your secrets anonymously. Again, that can turn sexual and inappropriate very quickly. Discord is another communication type app, and I've seen and had clients that have utilized Discord in a positive way, but it can also be a very dangerous place, a place for predators to prey on your children. And so, just being able to monitor that and what chat rooms and places they're getting into and what they're talking about. TikTok, obviously, Instagram, they have the ability to delete messages. A thing about Instagram you may or may not be aware of is that oftentimes our teens will have multiple accounts. One account that is like their public facing account that, anybody can see, including you, mom and dad. But then they may have a more private account that's just for certain friends, and mom and dad are not allowed to be on that. And so what are they sharing in those accounts? Are you aware of that? Are they being honest with you? Are you able to monitor that? Those are some questions to think about. And when it comes to TikTok and Instagram, they supposedly have the algorithm to protect your children who are underage, who have those accounts. And I follow a couple of social media accounts that share about these dangers and will test these things out themselves. Will create new accounts and play around on it. And they will say that even though you mark yourself as a teenager or you have a certain age and that this is supposed to be protected and you're not supposed to see anything bad, they will tell you that sometimes within seconds, your kids will start to see inappropriate material, sexualized material about like eating disorder, disorder type eating, and like having the really thin bodies and gruesome, like disgusting material, all things that are inappropriate for young children. They will start to see that very quickly, within minutes of creating a profile. And that is the algorithm. That's the algorithm feeding that information to them without that child even telling it anything about itself. You and I may know that, the more I look at wedding videos, the more wedding videos things I'm going to see. If I start looking up certain things, I'm going to start seeing more of those things and less of the other stuff, unless I'm purposely looking for those things, right? That's how the algorithms work. Our children don't really know that. I mean, they may know that a little bit, but they're not as aware of it maybe and conscious of it as we are. And even we get sucked in, right? That's where you can say, I just want to look at a few videos, and an hour later, I'm still looking at videos and I haven't gotten any work done, right? Our kids are experiencing the same thing. So you have to be very careful about what they are seeing. That's where they're seeing, these challenges, people talking about doing these, stupid challenges, which we as a parent, as adults can say, well, that's stupid. You would never do that. But kids, it makes it look fun. It makes it look entertaining. It makes it look like there's no big deal here. This isn't dangerous, when it is very dangerous, as we can see by, what happened in our community. And so, like, if we aren't monitoring, if we aren't aware what our kids are seeing and what they're doing, they can get seriously hurt. Even something as simple, as YouTube Kids, right? Again, you may not be aware. I've been aware of this for years, but I can't just set my kids down and say, hey, watch some YouTube Kids. It'll be okay. We need to be monitoring what they're watching, because unfortunately, you may trust your kid to get on YouTube Kids and watch the good stuff, or even just regular YouTube. But you can't trust them out there. You can't trust the people out there to do what they're supposed to do. So what happens is they may watch a video that's about Mickey Mouse, but somewhere in it, Mickey Mouse starts to do things that are inappropriate for Mickey Mouse to be doing. You catch my drift? And your kid doesn't realize that, right? They don't necessarily know what they're seeing, or they do, and they alert you to it. Sometimes it's very subtle. They may be making sexual motions or sexual jokes or, gruesome and gory type of, things like murder and stuff like that, where Mickey Mouse goes from being happy, joyful, fun to, stabbing somebody or, sexualizing somebody. And I'm just using Mickey Mouse because that's the thing that came up. It could be any cartoon your kid watches, any cartoon or show. And it could be a smooth transition, or it could be a total like, hey, parents are watching, so we give you a few minutes of this show to make you think that's what it is. And boop, in the middle is something not so good, and with an ending that maybe is back to what it's supposed to be, right? That's what can happen on social media, on YouTube, on any of these apps, to make you believe that they are safe when they're not. So for me, we don't let our kids use a lot of technology. When we do let them use YouTube, it's, we know what they're watching. Now, I can't say that I have always done this. And so there have been times where they have gotten on Netflix even, or YouTube, and, we're ended up watching something I didn't want them to watch. Not that it was terrible or any of these things that I'm talking about, but just like, hey, you're not old enough to watch that yet. And that's on me, that's on me for not paying attention. And so that's, it's very easy to say, hey, go ahead and watch some TV. I'm going to go do stuff over here. and they end up, 2, 3, 4 clicks over, and they're watching something that they shouldn't be watching. And those things they shouldn't be watching could be dangerous for them. It gets ideas in their head that they didn't need to be exposed to, gets them thinking that they are able or capable of trying something that they are not, and so many other things. So, being aware, monitoring them. So something to think about would be like, you can watch it in the same room as me, so that I'm aware of like what's going on here. Or making sure you're choosing the thing, but they don't have the remote, so they can't change it onto the next thing. Is something that Roblox does is, it seems pretty benign, but other people can get in there and create spaces, create rooms, create characters that are completely inappropriate for children to be seeing. Sexualized characters, violent characters, things that they shouldn't be seeing in a kid's game, a game meant for kids, right? Now adults play it, and there are probably adults out there that are playing it appropriately. But there are also adults, and maybe even not adults out there, playing this game inappropriately. And your children are going to be exposed to that, and they may not even connect the dots and realize that what they're seeing is inappropriate. And that's a big problem as well. So that's something, to be aware of on these apps. The Bible app. I was recently made aware of the Bible app. You can create, images and Bible verses, and, and the idea is like you can have the pictures and put the Bible verses on it. Well, that's a way kids are sharing like pornography, like sharing nudes. And then, you put the little Bible verse in there. But they, are making things like that happen, even in, Bible apps that you think are safe. So like predators can get to your kids in any location. And so are you aware of all the avenues that predators can get to your kids? I'm aware of people who have had their kids like propositioned, who have been sent sexualized images, who have convinced their kids to send them images, and then they bribe them and then convince them that they're going to ruin their lives by sending these nudes everywhere, that the kid was convinced to send them. And then those are the kids that end up killing themselves. And this has happened on numerous occasions. I'm aware of this happening personally to a couple of people in our community via clients or via, word of mouth, where they have gotten close to or have killed themselves because they were convinced to send information, send nudes, and then bribed to get that back. And they thought it would ruin their lives and that their parents wouldn't understand and their parents would hate them, and et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Okay. So lots of things out there that are dangerous for our kids, and a good app, or not an app, a good social media a social media person, I guess, to follow. I've been following her for a while. Her name is under Scrolling to Death, and I believe it's a number 2, scrolling the number 2 death. I could be wrong. But she shares a lot of helpful information and cases and things that are out there that are happening on a lot of these platforms that you may be unaware of. And that would be a good one for you as a parent to follow. There's probably lots out there. That's the one that came to mind first. The Bark app is an app you can download on your phone and on your kids' phones. You can even get a specific Bark phone that protects your kids from the stuff out there. But it really does. It allows you to monitor your kids' phones and what's going on. So you get alerted when certain things are happening. And there are many other apps out there. Those are the ones that just come to mind. I'm not selling any of these things. I'm just trying to help you as a parent be able to make a more informed decision. When I used to work at the Nationwide Children's Hospital, there were people in our building who worked on like social media and educating the community. And one thing that they shared, which is shocking, but also doesn't surprise me, is that these apps, these creators, they will go to like mental health conferences to learn about mental health, to then manipulate your mental health with their apps. So they know what they're doing. Their job is to get you to use their apps, not to stay off of them. So think about that when you're using these apps, that they want you to use them. They make more money when you use their apps, and when your kids use their apps. So do they really care about your kids' well-being or yours? Probably not. So thank you for joining me today. I hope you learned something. I hope I didn't scare you too much, but please, please, please just be aware of what your kids are doing on social media. Limit their access if at all possible. And if you can't, make a contract, talk to them about it, have some trust involved between the two of you, so that you can, help them in this crazy world that's out there. Thanks again. I will see you again next week.